is Dom from Upstate Supernatural. I'd like to welcome everybody in for a brand new episode of our Paranormal Stories. This week we have a special guest with us. We have Allie, the 11th Messenger. And Allie, I'd like to introduce you in. You're on right now.
Alright.
If you could let everybody kind of know whereabouts you're from and kind of what you do, what kind of came to be with you becoming the 11th Messenger, like where that comes from.
Okay, well, I'm kind of from all over, mostly the Midwest. I'm in the Kansas City area currently, and 11th Messenger kind of came about 4 months ago or so, and I just wanted to start my own channel and my own business with it. So I just started calling it that because I like the name, and the number 11 follows me everywhere, and I kind of feel like I'm a messenger for people. I feel like sometimes I have to give them messages, so that's kind of where that name came about. So that's how 11th Messenger really started.
And you do a lot of stuff on YouTube. You do quite a few different varieties of like tarot readings and other type of like psychic medium style things that you do on your channel. Would you like to explain a little bit more for any of the viewers that maybe like what how long have you had your abilities, or how long have you felt or got the readings and things like that were coming through to you?
Well, I've had these abilities all of my life. I used to scare my poor parents. They never really discouraged it when I said anything strange. So it kind of developed over time. And it's weird, it kind of comes and goes in phases, so it's stronger at sometimes than at other times. But I didn't really start to develop them until about 7 years ago or so, when I picked up my first tarot deck, and then I started, through people I knew, I started getting involved with paranormal investigations. So I had to be tested before I could start doing investigations, so people would know how accurate I could be. And so I get tested on the reg before people want to take me out to actually do investigations. So I learned then that I could do some remote viewing and some different, I have all the clairs, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, but I didn't really know I could do all of those things until I was being tested for them with the paranormal groups. So that's how that has started to come about. But I've been this way all of my life. A lot of psychics will say that we're just kind of born this way.
And a lot of individuals that are psychic and so forth, is there a difference for you when you go to do an investigation compared to like your everyday life of things that are happening? Like, do you have to tune in more when you're on an investigation, or like how does it come through to you?
Sure, I do things a little bit differently maybe than some other psychics might. I don't know, we're all kind of different in what we do, but I usually do a remote view first, which means that a group will contact me. I've been working with Apex Paranormal lately, and they won't give me any information on the location. If it is, it's just like, well, here's the city we're going to, and that's all I know. And so I try and pull out the information that I can. I call it from the field. It's like, for me, it's like kind of tuning into a radio station where I put my focus and that energy. It's hard to explain, but it's almost in a different place, or it's in a different frequency. And that's kind of where I start to I'll pull one piece of information, like I'll say, well, this is a house, or this was a business, or some kind of structure, and then I might pull, well, it's a brick building, and then I might pull a year, and then I can start to pull more and more information from just that little tiny part. And so after I do the remote view, I'll give them the information, the investigators, and then they don't tell me anything about the location, and I don't get any addresses or anything like that. I usually have to meet them somewhere, like at a gas station, and like follow them to the actual location, because that reduces the risk of overlaying information. So, and then I'll get there, and then I can do a walkthrough and see if I pick up on any additional information, or if what I said, I'll know then if it was more accurate. And even on the walkthrough, it's like they're not supposed to tell me anything. It's not till after we're finished that I'm allowed to know what matched up and what didn't. So it's interesting. It's weird when I hit on some really specific details, because it's like, I even say to myself, like, how did I know that? It's really strange, but I enjoy it a lot. And it's just this feeling that you get. I guess I'm different than a regular investigator, because when you're psychically connected, not only do you experience the activity, it's like you experience it in a completely different way. There's a connection between me and what I'm dealing with or talking to or communicating with. So there's this feeling of being connected to the other side that's just, it's unreal. It's like you get a buzz from it. I can never sleep after I do something like that, because I just feel all this energy all the time.
And that's a great question that's kind of popping in my head. When you do the investigations, or even when you're having just a basic reading, do the individuals stay with you? Like, do you basically become attached to the individuals that you're communicating with, or do they just come and go randomly? You know, especially after maybe an investigation, do you kind of get haunted yourself by having that connection so strongly?
You know, it's interesting. What happens with me, I don't know if this happens with other psychics that do these things, but I'll start to get nightmares a few days before, even a week up to the investigation, where these spirits are visiting me and trying to scare me, and they're nightmares basically, and they feel very, very real, and it feels like an intimidation sort of a thing. I call them warnings, because it's almost like they're saying, don't come out here, because, you know, we're going to do this and this to you. Now, I haven't been followed home by any spirits from an investigation. I try and keep my distance as much as I can kind of from it. Like, I connect in, but I still create like a bubble around me, so I'm protected, so they can't necessarily latch onto me. And not all investigations you have to worry about that. There are some that spirits are so tied to the location that they can't leave, or they feel like they can't leave, or they don't want to leave. But I have experienced a spiritual attack where I wasn't even at the location. I was doing a remote view for it, and I was working with 6% Paranormal, and whatever I connected to spiritually just immediately showed up in my apartment and stayed there for 3 months, and was very hard to get rid of, and it was very disturbing. So now I'm like extra careful about that, because that can't happen again. That was really awful. But I mean, it does happen, and people are getting more and more open. I've noticed the investigators have, as far as negative attachments go, and what happens with that. And I've seen many people get negative attachments from haunted locations, and they don't realize they have one, and they don't do anything about it, and then it gets worse and worse, and then the attachment kind of takes over, and then they don't want to get treated for it, you know. And so it's a very real thing, and it's a very dangerous thing. I think more emphasis needs to be put on how dangerous that is, especially for people that just think this is something that's fun to go out and do. And it is fun, you know, but it's also very serious, and it's very real. So I'm always warning people to be careful whenever they go out, and to protect and shield themselves and ground themselves, especially after an investigation. But you have to do all the protection stuff before you even go in. I recommend that to the investigators and the psychics that do this sort of work. I mean, as psychics, we're a little bit more susceptible to it, but a lot of times you'll see on a paranormal group, there will be some empaths on that group, or people who are sensitive, and they have no idea that they're supposed to do any of this stuff to kind of keep these things at bay, because you don't know what you're dealing with when you're walking into an investigation. Sometimes you don't know how dark it's going to be or how powerful it's going to be. So that's kind of what I tell people. I have a very strong belief in that. If you can, I'm very passionate about this, if you can tell.
I mean, that was one of the big things that I've kind of seen through a lot of the videos that you've done on YouTube, and kind of caught my interest to want to talk with you. You're a very positive individual when it comes to the paranormal, and it's not always like that with a lot of people out there. So I mean, it's always good to find individuals that are, and really, you know, get that information out there. So I mean, it was kind of a compliment, but
it was a great compliment. Thank you very much.
But you've worked with Apex Paranormal. You've worked with other paranormal teams. Mm-hmm. Did you work by yourself for a while before you started working with the teams, or did you start with the teams first and then you've just kind of moved from different teams, maybe depending on what you guys all had the same view on?
Well, I mean, I think let me back up. When I was little, well, most of my life, our family moved around a lot, and some of the places that we lived in were haunted, so that was kind of my first experience with spirits and locations, and it kind of groomed me to start to work with actual groups. Now, the only location I actually went to that was known for that was the Villisca Axe Murder House in Iowa. I went with my family, and I just wanted to check it out. And I was really nervous to go, and I almost didn't go. But I'm glad I did, because I could kind of see, well, I was seeing things when I was out there, but it was a good starting point for me. And it wasn't that a thing where I just went and spent the night or anything like that. It was a tour group. And so there was a lot of people there. It was during the day. I didn't feel like anything bad was going to happen to me. So it was actually a very good investigation. And then from there, I've worked with groups ever since then. And it's kind of like, when working with the paranormal group, you have to kind of make sure you mesh well with the people that you are working with. You don't have to necessarily believe the same things. I think it's good to have somebody who's a little bit more skeptical, somebody who's more spiritual, somebody who's good in working with the families. I think that there needs to be a mix of people on a group of all different kinds of beliefs. And then that way you get the evidence that you get, you can really look at it objectively. I'm not one of those people that will like jump to the first conclusion that a location is actually haunted. I mean, there's a lot of things that it could be. There's natural occurrences and there's unnatural occurrences, but you have to kind of weed those out. Not everything is paranormal, and I think that that's a healthy way to look at things. So, I mean, I mostly do residential investigations. I've started to do more public places. The public places are more dangerous as far as if there's been other groups that have been in and investigated, or other people that have come in and spend the night. You don't really know what they were doing in that location, like before I would go in there. And a lot of times, you know, if there's people that don't know what they're doing, or they're practicing some kind of occult means. Now, I'm not totally against that, but if you do it in the wrong way, it's not good, and you can actually draw in more negative energy, or you can open portals and things that weren't there originally. It could have just been a regular haunting, but now you're dealing with all these other darker energies that are a lot more dangerous, and that can actually follow you home. So I'm hesitant on those, but it's like I need to start doing them because, you know, sometimes those people need help too. The people that run those places, if they're museums or, you know, just attractions or whatever. So I've started to dip my toe a little bit more into that now. It's a little scary, but I'm getting used to it.
And I see a question in the chat. It's from Apex Paranormal. What are some good ways to protect yourself after an investigation, in your opinion, maybe from what you may do? I think I still have you with me. The video is a little... There we go. It's fixing itself. There you go.
There. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I got you back. If you didn't hear that... Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can now.
Okay. What are some good ways to protect yourself after an investigation?
Grounding is a good way, where you kind of get off the property a little bit, but I'd say to do it before you get in your car and leave, to kind of plant your feet in the ground, preferably barefooted if the weather's okay, and just kind of imagine yourself just kind of pulling any of that energy back into the ground. You can also use, some people prefer to use holy water, which you can sprinkle on yourself. You can say a prayer or two, depending on whatever. It kind of depends on what your religion is, because everyone does it a little bit differently. These are the things that I do. I wear certain medals. I even have one now, Seal of Solomon medals, or you can use saint medals and carry those with you. It helps kind of with that protection. But you can actually even sage yourself. I had one investigation at a residential where I came home and I just felt like I was still there, like I had a problem detaching from that energy. So I lit some sage and I saged myself and I breathed it in, and I felt better after that. But there's various ways of grounding. You can ground through wind and through water. It's like, there's a ton of different ways, and I recommend a book called The Witch's Shield that you can get on Amazon. I recommend it to a lot of my clients. I don't know the name of the author, but it's the only book with that title on Amazon, and it gives a lot of helpful, useful information on how to ground and protect, how to visualize a white light around you, or to visualize yourself with mirrors around you so it's reflecting back anything negative, so things can't see you. I also have a sigil tattooed on my back for protection. Like, I go all out when I do these things, because I've seen and experienced the darker sides of this, and how it's not easy to get rid of once you've attracted it in. So there's a lot of protective stuff I do initially, so that doesn't become a problem afterward. But those are just a few things. I mean, and you can look up any other videos on YouTube, or look online. There's just a lot of different ways, whatever works for you. Someone who's Wiccan might do a different way of protection than someone who is more Christian. So it's kind of like, it's going to be different for everybody. But research it. That's what I always recommend.
And another question I'm seeing within our chat as well is very similar to the last question, but basically, if there's a spirit that is attached to somebody, have you done cleansings and things like that? And if so, like what is the methodology that you use when you're trying to do a cleansing?
I haven't tried to remove an attachment from a person. I don't even know if I could. I mean, I could attempt it. I have had attachments. I've had at least 5. And I've had to go to people. I've been to a voodoo priest. I've been to somebody who is extremely spiritual, who practiced Reiki, and I've had Reiki work done, but he actually laid hands on me. They typically don't do that. And I've had angelic intervention to pull out a negative attachment. I've had people from a church, like a church group. They were actually at a psychic fair, and they were doing like these healings, and I had a feeling that I had an attachment, and they actually worked on it for quite a while. They didn't manage to get it all the way out, but it was enough, so I managed to get the rest out on my own. But I haven't attempted it on another person. I don't know what that would be like. I get asked it a lot. Again, it depends on your faith, but it seems that there needs to be some kind of laying hands on. And people that have negative attachments that go to your typical Christian or Catholic priest, the priest will tell you that you have to come on your own volition to get rid of this. They can't make you, they can't force you. And that's the problem if you've had this attachment a long time. That attachment will give you every excuse in the world not to go to have the attachment removed. So you have to do it kind of soon, kind of immediately, to get blessed. Sometimes it takes a few seconds to have an attachment be removed. Sometimes like the first time I had it done, it took about an hour. And you know when it's left your body because you feel it leave, and then you start crying uncontrollably, and then you just feel this calm take over. And the other thing about attachments is once you have one released or removed, they try and come back in. They don't just leave and flutter away somewhere. They will try and come back at you. Now they will give up eventually, I have found. But we're talking through nightmares, through other experiences. You're the most vulnerable at night when you're sleeping, so keep that in mind too. I actually wear certain necklaces and stuff to bed because I'm susceptible to being attacked at night. So I do all of that, but I haven't actually removed anything from anyone.
And then for some of the other questions, I mean, this is if you would like to discuss this. A lot of people are very curious about other paranormal individuals are obsessed with demons, obsessed with the negative aspect of the field. Have you personally yourself ever encountered what you would think is a demon, or possibly a extremely negative entity?
Yes, I have, and I would call it a demon, actually, the way it presented itself to me. This is like a story I usually don't talk about with what happened, but I'll share it. I mean, if it helps somebody else, maybe that's a good thing. But so it was that remote view that I did where this thing kind of came into it linked into my energy and showed up in my apartment. So I knew it was in my apartment. I felt this darkness immediately, and what this thing was doing was I for 3 months I had the worst nightmares. I couldn't sleep. It was constantly nightmares. I was constantly being chased or hunted by something or attacked by something that wasn't human. And then I would wake up choking. And then, you know, when I wouldn't wake up choking, I'd fall out of my bed, and my bed's pretty high off the ground. I would wake up crying, sometimes screaming. Sometimes I would I felt like I was having a heart attack. And when I would wake up from these events, there would be a shadow figure at the end of my bed. And it was the same one every night. And it was just staring at me, just kind of like it was toying with me or something. The scariest thing about this was that it felt familiar, and like I had been to this kind of level that this thing was on, or I knew this thing from my soul recognized what this was. That's the scariest thing I've ever dealt with, because I don't know where I knew it or how I knew it. I just knew that I knew it. And it wasn't something where, I mean, this feels like it had gone back eons and eons ago from when I might have known this thing, but I don't know how I would have known this thing. And I just thought, I really don't want to return to that, whatever that was. I mean, if that's the best way for me to explain it. So I went to a Catholic priest, someone who was very high up in the church, and you know, he said all kinds of terrible things to me. And so he said I was evil and all this nonsense. He didn't know anything about what I did or what I do to help people or anything. And I'm not bashing the Catholic religion. I grew up partially Catholic. My dad was Catholic, so, or my mom, I'm sorry. But so eventually these things try and get inside your body, like when you're sleeping. That's the whole goal of an attachment, and I'm going to just throw this in as an attachment, but a demonic attachment. And I could feel it. It eventually got in. I could feel it sitting in my chest cavity. Now, once you're kind of inhabited like by something like this, you have to remain positive, because some people will get suicidal. They start drinking. They turn in. Their personality completely changes, and they get angry and can't deal with life and they start losing time. They get mystery illnesses. So I knew that all of that could happen, so I had to remain as positive as possible until I could get help. And that's how I had my angelic divine intervention with this. And I'm not going to talk about that. It's pretty crazy what happened, but that's the angels, I think, sometimes are the only ones that can get rid of a demon. So that's what needed to happen, and that's what did happen. So, I mean, I take this field very seriously and what I do very seriously. And there's people that'll say I'm crazy and they won't believe it, and that's fine. I'm not trying to convert anyone or, I don't know, make anyone believe what I believe or that, you know, the spiritual side is real. That's not my job. They need to find that out on their own. But if someone else has experienced this, then hopefully they know that they're not going to sound crazy because other people have experienced this. And I hear that a lot. It's like people are going to think I'm crazy, and you know, you just can't worry about that anymore. This field is becoming more and more open, more accepted, more talked about. I've noticed that a lot of paranormal activity has ramped up as well, and people kind of coming into their own psychic abilities. So it's not going to be, I mean, the stigma on it is not, it's going away. It's not gone, but it's going away. So people are kind of waking up to those things. But yeah, that was my experience with some demons. I've dealt with some dark stuff too, but there's like a difference between a dark energy or like a former human spirit, and then a non-human entity, and then a demonic entity. I've dealt with all three, unfortunately.
And I think you kind of went over this with what you were just discussing, but in the chat it was asked, what are probably the largest signs to know if you have an attachment? And I think you kind of did go over that a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I'll go over that again. Okay, so say you're out on an investigation, you come home and you feel like you're not by yourself. That's one thing. You feel like you have an energy around you. You feel like you're being watched. You might start to have activity in your house. Now, the latest thing too is you can kind of attract this energy through your television, through your laptop, through your phone. In my case, it was through my phone. So you might always want to consider wearing headphones if you're watching any kind of paranormal show or listening to evidence or anything like that. Just wear headphones. That way it's not traveling to your place. But say that you do get followed home from an investigation. Yeah, you'll start to have activity, feel like you're not by yourself. You could start having nightmares. You could start having mystery illnesses. This is pretty common where all of a sudden you're sick and you have various things going on and you don't know why. You were healthy before and all of a sudden you're not, and you go to the doctor and they don't know what it is. That is pretty frequent. If it gets more severe, again, you could start having suicidal thoughts. You could start feeling like you're not yourself. If you talk to families that have spirits in their home, and the parents start to get out of control, that's kind of another thing. You'll see the parents arguing or they get divorced. People just get very short-fused. There's just a number of things. You could lose time. I mean, it's usually a bunch of things that kind of happen, and that's how you know. But a lot of times it's too late to get kind of treated for it if you're at the point where you have mystery illness and you know you're erratic and you're not yourself. It kind of, I won't say you're past the point of no return, but it becomes a lot more difficult to remove that attachment.
Okay. And then in this, I really, my own opinion on this, it really depends on your faith. It depends on a lot of different things like that. But a lot of people are curious if you've ever had the chance or the time to actually try to like do a crossing over for an individual that has passed. And I say that has to do with religion and stuff, because some people aren't religious. Some people have their own faith in other things. So
right.
have you ever felt that you've had that honor to kind of cross a spirit over or help them along the way, I guess?
I have not yet, but that day is coming. I was told by my spiritual teacher, and I have many mentors, that I'm a bridge for this. So I haven't worked up to that point yet. When you're psychic, a lot of times your gifts aren't revealed to you all at one time. I mean, for some people it's that way, but for a lot of people it's you kind of start to see them kind of unfold. They kind of come about in your life at certain times in your life. So crossing one over is not one I have done before, but it's going to happen. I already know. I would love to have the chance to do that, because that's like the greatest gift you can give a spirit who feels like they're stuck, is to get them to the other side. Now, a lot of darker spirits don't want to go. So, and also in a lot of locations, you're dealing with more darker spirits. They're the ones who are trapped here. That's why the house is haunted. But it's not always the case. Sometimes there's children, the spirits of children who are there, or people who don't know they have passed away that are still lingering around. So it kind of depends on who you're dealing with. And if they want to go over, a darker spirit won't want to go over. They want to stay where they're at. But another spirit, might want the ability to be crossed over. Now, there's been this argument. I've had people say, well, maybe they're not meant to cross over. How is that your call? And I don't know. I don't know if that would be my call. I would assume that if I could get help from the other side, and I do work with angels, that they would make it feasible or in some way. But I feel like that eventually my gift is going to turn into that, where I am crossing spirits over. I'm not sure how that's going to unfold yet or manifest yet, but I know it's coming. I look forward to it, though. I really do. So hopefully soon.
So I'm going to give you a question I'm sure not a lot of people have asked yet.
Okay.
For you, while you've been growing and learning new things within your gifts, has that changed your faith? Has that changed your spirituality from either, like the basic heaven and hell, or to a different theory, per se? Yeah,
it's interesting. I remain very open-minded with my faith. There are some things that my faith is rooted in since I was little, and a lot of my own personal beliefs, I have them because that's what I've experienced in my life. I believe in angels because that's what I've experienced. So, I know there's darker beings because that's what I've experienced. So, but I do keep an open mind with things, because as human beings, we don't know everything, and as a psychic, I don't know everything. It's just the tip of the iceberg as far as all of that goes. The things I do know about the other side is that it's hard for us to comprehend everything. If you've talked to anyone who's had a near-death experience, or you've watched any videos on that, what they experience is almost undescribable. Our brains just can't wrap around what that is. It's very surreal, but it all makes sense and it all connects together. I've noticed that there seems to be some kind of rules on the other side. There's some kind of guidelines of some kind, but as a psychic, I always tell people, and if you get involved in this type of work, it's like, well, if you see them, they see you. So if you're not ready for that, don't get involved in it, because they means everybody, everything. You're like a light. So you will attract positive and negative to you. So, but yeah, I keep my faith pretty flexible because I encounter new stuff. I challenge my own belief systems. It's an ongoing thing. I'm not really set in stone with many things.
And another question I kind of have for you is, what other tools do you like to utilize while you're investigating, other than just the abilities that you have internally? I mean, you yourself are a tool, a gifted tool.
Yes.
in the field
Yes.
itself. I just wonder if you actually have other tools that maybe you utilize as you're
I
investigating.
do not. There are other psychics that might use a ghost box or dowsing rods. Some use Ouija boards. I'm not a fan of those personally, but I just use myself. Like, I just go by feel, and then things that I'm clairaudient, so I hear things that come through also. So I personally don't use any other tools. And I joke about that. It's like, I am the tool. I tell the investigators what rooms are hot spots and what sort of activity is going on in each room, and that's where they need to set up a camera, and then they'll get more audio in this room. And, I kind of direct on, because I can see, I already know what's going on in each room. So that's kind of what I do. But I don't use, I don't use dowsing rods or anything like that. I mean, I could, but I've never felt the need to do so. It'd be interesting to see, though. I mean, I'm willing to try it.
Yeah, I mean, I do know other individuals that they'll utilize different tools, dowsing rods or crystals, and numerous different things like that. And I definitely, for the longest time myself, I was a disbeliever, in that whole aspect, and through doing a lot of interviews and really kind of getting to know more people that were psychic mediums and so forth, I really am starting to get to the point myself where I'm like, okay, there's definitely something here with this. Like, it's not just, and that's just, each investigator, every person in the world has their own opinion, has their own influences for what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Right. We're all different.
Right. Exactly. And you do a lot of tarot reading on your on your channel. I'd love for you to explain a little bit more about that for anybody that might be interested in viewing the videos you have on your channel.
Oh, okay. Well, when I started 11th Messenger on YouTube, I had 50 subscribers for 3 years. And it wasn't until I started doing the zodiac tarot readings for the month that I started to get a lot of subscribers. So I'm over 4,000 now, which in a year isn't too bad, but I'm pretty happy with it. And so I just do a tarot spread for each individual zodiac sign for each month. I do read, also, I do personal readings, although right now I'm taking a massive break from that. I'm sure I'll be doing it again sooner or later. I never can seem to walk away from it for too long, but there's some other things that I want to kind of learn, and so I'm trying to kind of up my game, I guess, from tarot and do some other things, but I need to really learn those and practice those for now. So I'm not doing any personal readings at the moment, but I still am doing the zodiac readings on my channel. So my channel is comprised of those readings and then my paranormal videos, which just talk about some of the experiences I've had, even in my own condo where I live right now, and some things that I've dealt with and seen. So those videos are on there on a separate playlist under just paranormal videos. My tarot, I got my own deck when I won't say my age. It's been 8 years now that I've been reading, and I started reading for friends and family members, and I would do that for free, and then eventually when more people would start coming to me, I'd start bartering my services until I could actually learn the deck, because it's pretty complicated and it needs to tell a story. So there's different types of tarot readers. There's people who are intuitive readers and people who are less of the intuitive and more of the specific meanings of the cards, which is fine. They both work. I'm more of an intuitive, but until I felt comfortable, I didn't really start up my business with 11th Messenger, and I didn't start really charging people, but I started to get a lot more requests for readings, and it became a time issue, and so I had to kind of learn to set boundaries, which you also have to do as a reader, because some people will take advantage of that. So that took a while to kind of establish. So, between readings and investigations, I would say investigations are my favorite, and I want to do more of those, and I will be doing more of those. With the tarot, It's definitely fun. It's my primary tool that I use. It's a tool for kind of reaching your higher self and communicating with your higher self to kind of relay those messages. And I tell people a lot of times too that I'm more of like a life coach. You know, my readings are psychic, but I do a lot of life coaching in those readings to help kind of guide people on their path and help them out in whatever way that I can. So, you know, if you're learning, then that's the route I recommend to go, is to really get some knowledge behind it. Eventually you could have your own YouTube channel and start your own business and make pretty good side money with it if you wanted to. So I do encourage that for people who like the cards. Not everyone likes cards. Some people like runes or seashells or what other methods, but it's all kind of the same. It's just whatever that you feel like you work the best with.
And there's many people, many individuals in the chat. They're complimenting your necklace.
Oh, thank you.
Is there a history behind that?
This? No.
Okay.
There was a lady at work that was selling these, and I had to have it, so I bought it. I'm not. The only spiritual thing I've got on me right now is obviously my tattoo, and then my Seal of Solomon pendant. And I love these. I get these at Renaissance fairs.
Oh, okay.
That's, for me, that's the best place. But you can find them online and on Amazon, and that's where I recommend people get crystals and wherever, because you can find them the least expensive on there. I'm always looking for like a bargain if I really need something, because sometimes they can be expensive. So that's what I do.
And if people don't believe in angels, and this is from Apex Paranormal, if you do you still have angels that are going to follow you if you don't believe in angels? Is kind of the question they're asking.
I believe that you do. You could have other things as well, spirit guides, people who have crossed over that are your loved ones that have chosen to still watch over you. In my own personal life, I have had proof of angelic stuff. Now that doesn't mean that it's real to anybody else, and I'm not trying to convince anybody else, but that's what I know, and that's who I work with. But some people may work with fairies, although that might be kind of scary. It just depends on who you are. It depends on what beings you want to call them. Some people say that it doesn't matter what you call them, angels or whatever, that they're all the same sort of high vibrational being. I just relate to them as angels. So yeah, I guess it varies from person to person, but that's just me. I don't like to tell people, well, yeah, angels follow you even though you don't believe in them, but that's kind of what I've seen and what I've experienced. But yeah, that's kind of a tough question because it's all about beliefs, so it's kind of hard to answer that. Right, because
every person has their own belief.
Yeah.
When you guys go into an investigation, and I'm sure this has to do with more of the paranormal team than yourself, when they go in there, do they do like a scientific baseline, with readings for EMF and things like that? And does that affect you when you're trying to do the readings in the location?
I usually go in before the equipment is set up in the first place. I don't know if the teams I've worked with have done baselines, not that I've seen. What usually happens is, well, and I'll step back a little bit, on the investigations I've been on, especially with residential, a lot of the activity can happen as soon as you walk in the front door, before any equipment is set up. And so, I go in first, and then I pick up what I can pick up. And then the team will come in and set up their equipment, and then usually we all leave and go to dinner or somewhere. And then give it a couple hours to see what happens in the location when we're gone. And a lot of times we'll pick up EVPs in those locations. And then and then I usually leave. I don't stay for the investigation part of it. Usually they happen at night. I do that for my own protective reasons, and I don't sleep at the investigation sites. I can't, because it's dangerous for me, and I wouldn't be able to sleep anyway, because the spirits would be trying to talk to me and relay messages, and I wouldn't sleep. And because when you're connected to a spirit or an energy, it's like you feel it buzzing through you like electricity. It's like, it's hard to explain, but you can't relax enough to sleep. It just doesn't happen. So I usually leave after equipment is set up. Now, I want to start staying longer on the investigations. I will still never sleep at one, though. I can promise you that. But I would like to try and actually start communicating through Ghostbox or through EVP sessions. I usually don't. I usually am more of the observer and the listener. But I'd like to start actually communicating, just kind of see what I can get. That might be interesting. I don't know.
Now, in all the years that you've been within the field and been, gifted with all the things that you're gifted with, have you ever channeled? Have you ever had something channeled through you? For me, it's kind of difficult because there's possession and then there's channeling,
yes.
and they're definitely two different things.
Right.
Have you ever had that happen during any of your experiences?
I have not. Luckily, I have not channeled. That's probably the most dangerous thing you can do as a psychic. And because you're using your body as the tool for something to come in and take over and use you to communicate. And you don't know what you could be pulling in. It could be anything. And if that takes over your body, first of all, it's physically very hard on your body. A lot of channelers come down with illnesses and they don't end up living very long. But you don't know what's hopped in your body, and you don't know if it's going to stay or for how long. And, do you have the ability to push it back out again? And some people do. Some people channel, and they feel comfortable with that, and that's great for them. It's not something that I would ever want to do. I wouldn't ever want to use my body as the tool of communication for that. That's pretty scary. Now, there's some people like Abraham who does that, like Esther Hicks channels Abraham and delivers very positive messages, and I'm all for that. Me personally, I wouldn't, even if I knew how to do that, I wouldn't do that. No way.
Have you ever had the experience of listening in with Ghostbox? Because honestly, with the channel that I kind of have, we do a lot of stuff with the spirit box and so forth.
Right.
Have you ever had you ever sat down and used one yourself, or been with the team when they're using one? And what's kind of your thoughts with it?
I have been with very minimally. I've been with 6% when they've used theirs. We went to the Warnell House, which is a historical home in Kansas City, and we didn't really get much there. We've used them on residential where some profanity came through. So, and I've never personally used one myself where I had controlled that. I believe that it's real and that it is a communication device, but again, unless you're dealing with somebody who kind of knows their way around it, which I do not. I'm not skilled in that. I'm not knowledgeable enough with that. There's people who are very successful with it. Christopher Moon, for example, I had a reading with him via Skype. We did a ghost box session, and so this was a reading for me personally for questions that I had. And what happened was two of my spirit guides came through and basically took over the whole session and was telling me, you need to do this and you need to do this and you haven't done this and why aren't you doing this, and came through with some words of encouragement. And I like Christopher Moon's work quite a bit because that's his tool. Like I use tarot, that's like his tool. That's what he uses, and he will give voices from the spirit box of people's deceased relatives, like in their own voice. So, and he does a lot of positive things with it, which I think is amazing. I think that, like, if anyone isn't afraid to use it, and who feels comfortable with it and who has results with it, then that's great. That's your tool. That's your medium. And you know, I've seen some pretty amazing stuff with it myself. So, you know, just from various people that I've worked with. So I believe that it's real. I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to use it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Now, do you have upcoming things that are coming up for you? Any events, any books, any new videos, new ventures, things like that you'd like to make any announcements or let everybody know?
Sure. Well, let's see. I'm working on my July tarot readings for my channel, 11th Messenger, for the zodiac signs. I'm late, as usual. I usually don't get those out on time because I'm busy. But I'm going to be doing those this month. And I'm doing 2 investigations with Apex Paranormal, and those are coming up. I've got one next weekend and then one in August. Well, and I'll be revisiting the location that I went to before with them, where the walkthrough was all on Facebook Live, and that's on their Facebook page. And so there's going to be more events with them. I am working on a book. I'm very slow at it. I started with the hardest chapter first, which talks about, you know, what happened to me with that negative attachment, that demonic entity. So I'm working on that. I'm not sure when that's ever going to get released, but it's in progress. And so, and I'll keep everybody updated on what I'm doing on my channel, 11th Messenger, as well. But I'm happy to do more radio events and such, and just kind of get myself out there a little bit more. So I appreciate you having me on here.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's definitely been a fantastic time having you on here with great facts and great information for everybody in the field. So I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. I've had a good time tonight.
But I'm just trying to see if there's any other questions that are popping up in the chat.
Okay.
One of the comments that was in there was that with your connection to the spirit side of things, if you were to start using a ghost box or start using spirit boxes, Phil R. Wyatt, and he's actually he founded the ITC collaboration on Facebook, which has Christopher Moon, has a lot of the box builders. I'm involved with it as well.
Oh, cool.
He was basically saying if you got in a spirit box and ghost box, he thinks it would be a really good, you know, it would definitely be in sync with you in time. Okay. So.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And for me personally, with the spirit box, I think anybody, you know, if you're really interested in the field, go ahead and try it. You know what I mean? Ouija boards, you're physically using your body. The same thing as if you were channeling, you're physically using your body. Right. I've used them before myself, and I can honestly say I get letters that come in my mind instead of like something physically moving me. The letters will come into my mind when using a Ouija board, which is freaky. But I don't recommend it for many individuals. You never know what you're going to get, and you never know what you're going to get with any device you use. Yeah. But is there anything else? Say there was somebody that's new in the field that's maybe a psychic medium. Is there any advice you can give to them? And I think that's a good thing probably to leave on.
Okay, well, do your research first and foremost, and YouTube is a great research tool. Try and find other people in the community via Facebook or any metaphysical stores you can go to reach out to people, or Renaissance fairs even, because you'll have a lot of people who sell a lot of jewelry, and there are readers out there. Any kind of psychic fair to get yourself involved in, to kind of get to know people. I would say, first and foremost, learn how to protect yourself and shield yourself and ground yourself before you do anything else, because that's the most important thing. And then you can start getting into whatever area that you're interested in. And, you know, a lot of times a teacher will find you when the student is ready. So, you know, if you can find a couple mentors, or they'll a lot of times pop up in your life when you're ready to, then that's a great way to start. All
right, and thank you so much for being on as a guest. And
Sure.
for those of you that may be interested in trying to find her YouTube channel, it is in the description below this video. You can click on the link, it'll take you right there. You can also find her on Facebook. I have the link right in the description for you. And is there any other areas that people may be able to find you?
That's it for now. But I will keep people updated on my Facebook and my YouTube if there's going to be any other events or anything like that. So I'm pretty new as far as getting my name out there. I've done a psychic panel, I've done psychic fairs, some other things, but you know, again, I'd like to do more shows like this and kind of get myself out there a little bit more. So I'll keep people notified via YouTube or Facebook on where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Allie.
Sure, thank you.
And everybody have a beautiful night, and have a safe and hopefully family-oriented July 4th. And if you're from Canada, I hope you had a great Canada Day yesterday. And we will catch you later. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much.
Thank you.